All right, and now for our last panel of the day, we are going to talk about why science fiction inspires us. Please welcome to the stage. He has brought us to the past, the present, and the future. One of my favorite filmmakers, Ridley Scott, the director of The Martian. Inspiration to geeks everywhere, Andy Weir, author of the book The Martian. Writer of many films and television shows, the amazing Drew Goddard, who wrote the screenplay for The Martian. Please give him a hand. All right, gentlemen, my first question for you, down the line. What does science fiction inspire us to do? Andy?
Test. It inspires me to write a book and make just like a huge amount of money. And then, you know, it's just like everybody else. You sit down, you kind of crap out a story in your spare time, and then Ridley Scott directs it, and Matt Damon stars in it. You know, it's just your basic. No. Science fiction, I think, kind of feeds into the public imagination. I was talking about this in the first panel a little bit, where we're in a virtuous cycle. Good sci-fi movies drive public interest in space. Public interest in space drives the industry to make more good sci-fi movies. So it's this cool virtuous cycle that ends up with people getting good entertainment and also a bunch of really cool science.
Orson Welles predated the Wright brothers. I just thought of this, by the way, this is the way the brain works. Orson Welles predated the Wright brothers probably by about 25 years, 30 years, maybe. Or maybe roughly. You've got to have been alive when the Wright brothers did their first flight.
H.G. Wells.
No. Who did I say?
You said Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Sorry, I meant H.G. Wells.
Yes.
H.G. Wells, who was actually a great originator of science fiction, in a funny kind of way that felt real, felt possible, as opposed to fantasy. And the Wright brothers, do I mean the Wright brothers, would be considered science fiction by 1899. They'd be fucking around in some garage somewhere with tissue paper and frames, right? I think the first flight lasted, what, 100 feet?
Yeah, about that. Less than the wingspan of a modern 747.
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Yeah, the first Wright brothers flight was a shorter distance than the distance between the wingtips of a 747.
So, but they're sci-fi. It always amazes me by the time you hit Second World War, with there's all kinds of things, you know, flying at each other and bombing everything. The evolution from them to where we are now, where we're seriously considering standing on Mars, is shocking. And so that's the best answer. We have to have science fiction, because I think science fiction, science fact integrate. I think mathematicians, scientists, it's art. And what we do, I think, is art, and art stretches imagination at its best. I think what we do is pretty interesting. Stanley Kubrick was the first guy to come up with saying, you know what, pay attention to this eye, because this is called a computer. In those days, I defy anyone to be aware of a computer in those years. HAL 900, was it? Was a genius notion of the future. We're heading right up that alleyway, because right there's Big Brother. So science fiction is essential, because I think sometimes it gives scientists and mathematicians ideas. They admitted it. They said, by the way, what your suit's like. I said, I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
And then they talked about the suits.
Drew?
Yeah, I can just say personally, I mean, I feel like I have a career because of science fiction, not because it's what I do, it's because it's what inspires me to think about who we are and our place in the world. I mean, my earliest memories, my dad took me to see Blade Runner when I was 7, and it's like, oh, my world changed.
All right.
Yeah. It's true, though. I know, he is sick of hearing this. But it's true.
Oh, I'm sick of hearing that you were 7.
I was all right. You're very old, Ridley. But yeah, and I think that there is a correlation. I mean, I think that at its fundamental heart, it makes me feel less alone, because it feels like there are other people out there that are looking up and asking how.
Andy, is there a seminal piece of science fiction that started you down the path to being a science geek and wanting to explore in your mind other possibilities?
So I grew up reading my father's science fiction collection. So I'm kind of one generation off on the sci-fi. So I'm a Gen Xer, right? I'm 43 years old, but I grew up reading baby boomer era, like stuff from the 1950s and 60s. So the authors that I worship are Heinlein and Asimov and Clarke. And if I had to pick one, just one, I would say I, Robot by Asimov is just really inspired me because that was the first time that, I was young, so I hadn't read that much, but that was the first time that I really saw an immersive science fiction setting. Like, I, Robot, it's a collection of short stories, but they all take place in this same futuristic universe, and Asimov explored all the different directions you could go with this fairly simple, basic 3 laws, and I just it really connected with me, the idea of like, okay, you make this small, well, not small by our standards, but you have this one thing that is different in the world. You have robots and these are the rules they follow. And then just exploring all the directions that goes. That's what really gave me a love of sci-fi.
Ridley, the beginning of your career, you started out with Blade Runner and Alien, and then you came back to science fiction, it seems, years later with Prometheus and The Martian. Is there something, did something change in the intervening years about your approach to taking a look at science fiction as a genre?
I was frustrated that I saw the end of Alien, and so I kept thinking about it, and kept thinking about it. In the subsequent Aliens, not to be competitive for a minute.
I don't know about those movies.
I'm really competitive. So no one asked the question, who would make this and why? It was bizarre that was never asked. And instead they do adventure, stuff, which we're fed up to death of. I mean, a story with a thread of real, like Kubrick would do. There was a real idea that would thread through that. That I just said, we can resurrect it. So we came out the box and we did Prometheus. And the fundamental basis of the reason why I argue about the very first, what I call the croissant, the boomerang ship, I always saw it as a battle. I used to call it a battle wagon, a battleship. On board was biomechanoid weaponry. The guy who became called the space jockey, I don't know how, but he was a pilot. So who was he, what happened to him, and where was he going? So that's where I'm headed right now. So Prometheus was out of the box, stage 1. I'm entering stage 2 in 7 weeks in Sydney, and there'll be 3 and 4 before I come around the back end of Alien.
And I mean, one of the things all three of you do for a living is you posit deeply, what would it be like if? And Drew, you had the difficult task of taking Andy's amazing book with, I don't know, about 300 terrible things that happened to Mark Watney and boil that into enough to fit into a feature film. How did you set out to tackle that process?
Yeah. I mean, for me, with screenplays, it all comes down to character, and it comes down to what is the arc of the character. And so one of the things that really jumped out immediately with Andy's book is so much of the story is about characters selflessly looking out for each other, and I found that sort of gave me a soul or a spine to build around. So as I would go through it, I would ask myself, okay, in this scene, are people looking out for each other? And if they're not, then it can go, because you have to sort of find how you're going to structure the script, and that sort of gave me the skeleton.
Is there a early piece of science fiction that totally grabbed you, and besides Blade Runner, when you were 17?
I'm very young. I was 7. Yeah. It was, for me, I come sort of from the comedic side. Douglas Adams was, it's sort of the combination of Douglas Adams and Gary Larson, who drew The Far Side, and really in one panel form sort of captured this sort of jovial quality of scientists that just delighted me as a child. And so, but those two, and Douglas is a god as far as I'm concerned. Like everything I do can be sort of traced back through Douglas to Ridley, some weird combination of those two things.
Andy, when you're sitting there thinking about all the terrible things that will happen to Mark Watney, Is Mark a construction in your head, or is he you? Are you thinking about how you'd respond to these things in the best of all possible circumstances?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, Mark was just my own personality, but just the parts of myself that I like, and none of the parts that I don't like. I think you'll find that pretty much any protagonist is someone the writer wants to be, or someone the writer wants to screw. For the record, I want to be Watney. And
Thanks for clarifying.
All the challenges and problems that he faced were basically my own paranoia. I imagined, like, okay, if I'm in his situation right now and things are stable, what would I be worried about happening? I'd be like, okay, I'm here, I'm in a hab, I'm worried about, this leaking, I'm worried about that thing happening. This sequence of events could go wrong and kill me. That's what I would be worried about. And so I'd say, like, well, the things that I can think of, I'll have them happen, for I am a vengeful god. And poor guy could not get a break.
I remember reading, Ridley, that in Alien you built the set as a almost complete sort of habit trail that the actors had trouble finding their way back out again, as sort of an immersive environment.
Yeah, I mean, Alien was done very, even for those days, reasonable. It was 8.2, went to 8.6, I think, at the time, and I was very much engaged with the production designer, Michael Seymour, and Roger Christian, who's now a director, and Les Dully. And so it was, and because I'm fundamentally a designer, it was a lot of work working with that and maximizing on the budget as to how much I could max out. And I wanted to have an organic set that would join up with the other end. In other words, a composite set. I want a real set, because I'm a camera operator, so there was all one camera in those days. And so I would wander around the set working out how I'm going to get around these turns and corners with a good dolly grip. And so we just painted with the camera. And that's why it was all organic. And if you wandered in, it was a bit like a maze. You got lost.
Some of the grips are still there.
They're still there, yeah.
We don't know what happened to that guy.
Did any of those ideas about putting the actor into an environment that feels so real to them inform the way you attacked the Martian?
Oh, I mean, any actor, worth his salt or not worth his salt, will actually appreciate a proscenium. The better the set, they're going to love it. If you've got green screen saying, and the monster's coming down there, that's not too good. That's difficult for them to do, because they're totally in a lost situation. They have to imagine everything. I supply them as much as I possibly can.
Well, and this is a new. I mean, we're in this age when computers can do almost anything, and people have shot entire movies where the actors never saw each other, like Lord of the Ring, the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
But it seems like there is a retraction back to more handmade, or let's say real environments. People like you.
Sometimes a film costs so much to keep actors hanging around for 4 months while somebody else comes in. But yeah, I mean, I can understand where it gets to that at some point, because remember, Alien was a really quite small ensemble. Quite small. It was 7 people plus the bad guy. And without the bad guy, we wouldn't have had a movie, right?
Each of you, in working in this genre, meets scientists, has met scientists in this genre. So you find yourself inspired by culture and inspired by the science that we're producing and thinking about where it can go. What are the conversations like that you've had with scientists about what's possible in the future?
Oh,
me? Oh,
Andy.
okay, sorry. You looked at Drew. You confused me.
I've got a big one about this, because they always get embarrassed. Go on, you go first.
Oh, well.
Love embarrassing scientists.
Well, it was just a thrill for me, because, like, when I wrote this story, I didn't know it was going to get so popular. So as it kind of started to get popular, one of the first groups of people who really started to like it were folks at NASA. So I started getting email from people at NASA, like, "Hey, I read your book. I liked it. Hey, I read your book. This part's inaccurate." And and I think my favorite moment was when it was Christmas Eve. I want to say 2012, 2013. I don't know, it was Christmas Eve, and they had to do an emergency EVA to fix a part of ISS. And so they had to have the whole EVA team in and everything like that at Mission Control. This is in the real world and everything. And so a bunch of people in at work when, it was Christmas Eve, they didn't really want to be. And EVAs are often like a hurry up and wait. It's like, okay, do this, now wait 6 hours, before the start of the EVA. And so they were bored, and they were sitting around apparently talking about the Martian. And so they started emailing me. And so I'm just getting emails from like Mission Control. I'm at my mother's house because it's Christmas, and I'm like, hey, Mom, check it out. So that was really cool. And but I think my favorite scientist interaction on the story is the University of Arizona, which controls the HiRISE instrument on, and I always get it wrong, it's either MRO or it's either Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter or Mars Global Surveyor. I think, is it MRO or? MRO, okay, thank you. The HiRISE, there's a couple of scientists here today. The HiRISE instrument is this, basically a spy satellite camera. I mean, it can take pictures of the surface of Mars with a resolution of 1 pixel per square foot. So, every pixel in the image is 1 square foot of the ground. And so it's this incredible detail. And those guys who are controlling it said, in The Martian, the book gives the exact location of the HAB. It tells you, the exact latitude and longitude down to, fractions of a degree and stuff. Let's take a picture of what's there. And so they took a picture of what's there and then posted it online and said, this doesn't look anything like Andy described it. So, but that was hilarious. I loved it. It was awesome.
Ridley, is there a point when you're working through the design process of both how the film's going to look and what's going in it, that the design of things actually changes what you're doing narratively?
No. No, not really. I mean, it's not. And the design process begins pretty well where we're putting the script to bed. When the script's coming down, and in this instance, we had the luxury of having a finished script. Frequently, you do not have a finished script, and that's a nightmare. In which case, I've got to just get on designing with or without the script. In this instance, we're able to pinpoint everything because it was very complete.
Drew, do you have a process where did you end up speaking to any scientists from NASA while working on the script for The Martian?
Not while I was working on the script.
Only after.
Mostly because JPL's just closer. Quite honestly, I would drive over to JPL. And a lot of the stuff that I heard at JPL and found its way into the script. I knew that once we had the script, we would show it to NASA and work. But part of me, I knew that Andy has forgotten more about science than I will ever know. And I sort of felt like my job was to capture the sound and protect from the book the sound of scientists. I grew up around them, and the thing that I fell in love with in Andy's book was they didn't sound the way they normally sound in movies. In movies they sort of show up and give exposition and then leave. That's usually what happens when there's a scientist depicted in a movie. And I liked the way we found the sort of collegial compassion, if that makes sense. It's just my favorite moments in the movie are the moments where you see the colleagues and they're exhausted.
Totally.
And but they're still trying to approach the problem, and they're still trying to help one another approach the problem. And to me, that was the thing that I thought, okay, if I can help protect this in the script, we can get the much smarter people than me to go over it and make sure I didn't screw up. And I screwed up a lot. But they all fixed it. And a lot of the mistakes I made, Andy corrected, and then we put that dialogue in the film because it delighted me that the line, a physicist would never use the word fast to describe velocity. That's just Andy's note, and I thought it was so funny I just wrote it in the script.
I think, I don't know how the scientists here, but I feel like the depiction of scientists in The Martian is the best depiction of scientists in any movie I have ever seen, of their dedication, their intelligence.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing I've heard on this entire experience, by the way.
Is there, when you think towards the future, I'll start with Drew, is there a thing you really want to happen, like a replicator, or do you want to go to Mars? What is the personal fantasy you have?
Yeah, no, replicants. I want replicants, right? Right, Ridley? Can we get on that? Or you guys? I feel like this room can figure out how to get me a replicant. Can we work on that?
Somebody might have just done it. We did just pass Roy Batty's incept date, didn't we? Yeah, his birthday.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. What's the question?
Is there a possible future that you get really excited about? Is there a technology or an extension of the science that we're currently exploring today that gets you excited?
Yeah. Fix the world. Fix the bloody world, dude, before. To actually say we're going to cut emission by 2033 is insane. You should be cutting it by next year. It's that simple. We all know it, don't we? We may have passed the point where we don't want to be. That's what I'm dreaming of.
I'm dreaming of replicants, so equally noble, I would say.
Okay, so Ridley wants to save the world. Drew wants sex bots. I guess I tend to think, I'm more hard sci-fi. I think that the emerging self-driving car technology is going to have a tremendous effect on society that people don't even realize yet. For a lot of people, they're just thinking, oh, it'll be cool. I'll get in my car and I'll tell it and take me somewhere and I don't have to drive. No, it's going to have this huge disruptive, in a good way, effect on the world. People probably won't even own cars anymore. Why would you? You'd just be part of a car service. So it's like Uber, but without drivers. A car just comes and picks you up and takes you where you want to go.
Probably.
Hopefully, yeah. We don't need to dedicate 10% of our cities to parking, as we do right now. That would just go away because the cars would just roam around. They wouldn't need to park. And then, unfortunately, it means pretty much the entire trucking industry and cab industry are going to disappear. Like the people who do that for a living are going to be out of a job. But it also means that all of those services are going to be a lot cheaper. And it also means that these new fleets of cars could be electric, which could help emissions. Traffic jams will probably be a thing of the past because the central dispatching system can arrange everything, and the cars will cooperate with each other a lot better than human drivers do. I think in the future...
We'll save 30,000 lives a year.
Yes, also there won't be... people won't die from drunk driving. And there will be... getting in a car accident will be as rare as getting in a plane accident. I mean, because these systems are going to be like so very safe. And so I think it's going to be this huge, very positive effect on society, and that's something. It's coming. It's going to happen, and in all of our lifetimes. So that's what I'm really looking forward to.
As long as I can still have a Ferrari.
You could have a self-driving Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm holding out for my Land Cruiser. I got to be able to drive.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of people who like to drive, but one thing I also see is if you go forward in time 100 years and ask people to talk about the early 21st century, they will be completely baffled and horrified that people got to drive their own cars. It'll be like, oh my God, this is the equivalent of how we look back at like 19th century, 10-year-old child labor coal miners. It'll be like, how could you do that? That's how they'll think of us. That's how they'll think of you driving your car, Adam.
I'm going to convert it to
Pollution
electric.
then was actually horse manure and tons of horse urine on the streets, both in New York and London.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, speaking of fixing the world, back before automobiles, it was considered a totally intractable problem, the horse shit in the streets of New York. Like, we would never get rid of this, and 10 years after cars, it was all gone.
The original self-driving car, though, a horse. No, automatic collision detection. Everything's built in. I mean, the horse usually knew its way home, too. You could be passed out drunk in your wagon. It'd get you home.
Hence the expression, you're full of shit.
This is not where I expected this conversation to go. If you could live in one of the possible futures that has been concocted by science fiction, if you could live in one of them, which would you choose?
Oh, that is such the question that as soon as I leave here, I'm going to have 10 other answers and be upset with myself. Hang on. Andy, go if you've...
All right, sure. Well, for me, it's easy because I don't want to live in an exciting world like, an exciting universe like Star Wars. People get shot and die there and stuff like that. I want to live in E.N.M. Banks' culture society. The culture, yeah, it's just called The Culture, and it's a post-scarcity society where basically they've, computers and robots automate everything. You just live a life of leisure all the time. I mean, it makes it's not exciting, but it's awesome. You just live like a king. You don't have to work or anything. So hell yeah, that's where I'd want to live.
I would like to live in Star Wars. The exact opposite reason, because I would like a lightsaber.
And I love working, so that life of leisure is totally bloody boring.
Exactly.
You can work if you want. You're allowed.
I mean, Ridley, have you created a world in one of your films that you don't want to leave? Or by the time you're done with the film, you're happy to put it away?
Well, I kind of live there, 3 minutes from a film called A Good Year, Vineyard. I've been there 22 years. That's pretty good. And sometimes we edit down there. So it's great and economic and cheaper, and no one wants to leave.
So what do you think that the role of artists is in pushing the culture forward in its understanding of science and where we could go?
Say that again?
What do you think the role of artists is in interpreting and extending our understanding of science and what's possible?
Well, that's why I think we're divided into arts and sciences, and I honestly don't know the difference. I think science is art, mathematics is art. So there is no difference. You just happen to pick up a brush and dab in paint, or on the other hand, you sit in front of a piece of paper and push around equations because you are passionate about that. And one day the painting comes right and you solve the equation. That's art.
I think this is as good a place to stop as any. Will you please give a hand to Andy, Ridley, and Drew? Thank you guys very much.